Hey, good morning, TFWR. How is everybody today? Welcome to another week of this wonderful, amazing show. So today we have an amazing guest. You might recognize him. It's William George, now it's William George Sr.,
No,
longtime
the third.
PBG.
I mean,
The
yeah,
third.
junior. My son's the third.
Your son's the third. Okay, so corrected. And he's been at PBG, whether it's an assistant or a head coach, for almost 25 years. So he's had a great career down there. He's coached multiple state champs, dozens of place winners, and currently is coaching his son, who qualified this year for state, four-time Palm Beach County Coach of the Year. And he's been to the quarterfinals and finished 8th at the individual state tournament. So welcome, Coach George. I appreciate you coming on here. I like that you're out there in San Francisco overlooking the bridge. That's really nice. Yeah. And so tell us, how has this COVID affected you, first of all?
Well, I'm like every other coach out there, man. I'm antsy. I'm trying to figure out when's the earliest I can do anything with my kids. I'm nervous because I got some real good kids coming back, like a lot of other people do, and we're all nervous about what we're losing. We're losing a little edge here, but the good news is we're all in the same boat.
Yes, sir. That's for sure. I've got actually Dale Cody just signed up with FAWA, and he's got all the USA rules and restrictions that have come out with according to what you guys can do as far as opening back up and wrestling tournaments and rooms. So he did sign up for next week, so he'll be on to discuss that. So hopefully that'll help a lot of coaches and club owners find their way. So I did reach out to him.
You know what? The sport's so good, and it teaches such good habits, though, man. I'm sure I speak for most of the coaches with tough kids in the state, man. My kids are out there doing anything they can do anyway. They're training. Kids are getting stronger anyway. They're just finding other ways. They're doing pull-ups on trees, on the edge of their house. Whatever. They're doing more outside individual work than they ever did before. So
and it's great. These kids have to take the initiative. If they're not out there doing something for themselves, then when they get back in the room, they're going to be behind. Nobody, as far as the wrestling is concerned, has an advantage. Everybody's in the same boat, right? So everybody's watching a TV, doing whatever, unless you have a brother or something that you can wrestle with. But
hey, they're finding ways. Trust me, they're going in people's garages. But the people who want to do it are going to do it. But wrestling's going to hit the ground running more so than a lot of other sports. This is not crippling wrestling as much as crippling other sports.
Yeah, it's tough to practice football in your garage, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So a question I have for you, and so you've been there 24 years, so that's a long time. So describe yourself as a young assistant coach versus the old wise coach you are now.
Yeah, well, much to a lot of referees' delights, I chilled a whole lot, man. I was that guy on the sideline with my older coach, Mike Chesness, who also was my high school coach. He was always trying to chill me out. If something happened in a match, I'd be all fired up and worked up about it, ready to go at the other coach or ready to go at the referee or the kids sometimes when I was just out of college. We've been there. It's a little embarrassing to look back on now. But now I'm the guy sitting back. I could always think about one thing now that I didn't think about before, and that's my job as a teacher. That comes first.
Yeah, and you're still educating those children.
Yeah, and you start to become more cognizant as an older guy. You start to be more cognizant of the surroundings. When you're young, you're like in a little bubble, and it's all about you and the way things bother you. They pissed you off or whatever. They got you excited, and you react like an excited young guy. But when you get older, you start thinking, there's people in the audience watching me. My principal's over there. My son's watching me. All those things start affecting.
Yeah, I got to agree. I've had to learn. So my son wrestled 7th and 8th grade, and I didn't get to watch a ton of the matches because I was still working in the car business. So I'd get the pictures or the videos. And then, and I've told the story before, he said to me, hey, man, this is what I want to do. So I had to change my life. I walked out of the car business and got my real estate license so I can kind of make my own time. So I
Yeah.
finally get at the end of 8th grade before this year, 9th grade, I get to travel with him and we're going to camps and clubs. And I have no idea how to be a wrestling parent, right? So as soon as he's coming off, and at the time he's getting killed. I mean, he's just young. He's trained a little bit, but nothing to what he's done now, right? And he'd come off the mat and I'd be right there. Hey, it's okay, son, you're okay. And he'd be cursing at me and telling me to leave him alone. So he had to educate me. He's like, Dad, you got to give me 10 minutes. Whether I win or I lose, please just give me 10 minutes. So I've had to learn as a parent too. And sometimes I get excited. I've had Coach Rose look over at me and he's like, Dan, you're not allowed here. Go somewhere else. And so I'm learning myself too as a parent.
Sometimes as a parent, you can't win anyway because they're looking to lash out most of the time when they lose anyway. And they can't do it on the ref. They can't do it on the kid that just beat them. So you're their whipping boy either way. If you don't go over, they say, you didn't care at all. Where were you? I was looking around. And if you do walk up to them, it's like, leave me alone. So, you're the whipping boy.
So he's educated me on that.
Moms get it worse than dads too.
But it's been a great experience for me. But so I know you took 6 to state this year, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. And then one of them being your son, who was a junior this year, yeah?
Yes, sir.
And he's like William George, like the 15th, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So awesome. So he's doing well. How'd he do out there?
He's great, man. I love him. Overall, it's just been a ride. It's been a great ride, and I want him to know that too. I don't say this to him enough. I don't even care about the placings anymore, man. That was like what I was obsessed with when I was a younger dad, and I was like, this guy's going to be a state champ. And everybody was saying that he's going to be a state champ. He's going to be a state champ. You know what, man? He's already 10 times better than I ever was as a wrestler. He's dealing with me breathing down his neck all the time and all the expectations of everybody in the county, in the state that know him, and all my personal friends. That's a lot to deal with for a kid, and trying to live up to your dad's reputation. I keep telling him, as a high school wrestler, you're already better than I was anyway. I mean, anything you heard about from me in college or as a coach, you have yet to be. You can kill all that too. But as a high school wrestler, you're already there. So don't worry about me. Just go out and wrestle.
So what was how'd he do? How'd he do this year?
He took 4th this year, placed 5th last year as a 10th grader. And he went and went to the blood round, which is a round that you have to win. You win, you place, you lose, you're out. His freshman year, and every year he's exceeded expectations. So I need to sit back and just enjoy the ride, because the first year as a freshman, he had never wrestled. He started competitive wrestling, like you were saying with your son, like 7th grade. Everybody assumed a lot more because he had been around the wrestling tournaments with me when he was a kid, but I never let him wrestle. He wasn't ready. He was hard-headed. He was kind of wild, rambunctious. Give him an inch, you take a mile type kid. You teach him something, he go out and twist somebody's neck the wrong way.
It's fun. I hear that from coaches now that I've been doing this, that have little guys, or even when I was in a room with my son wrestling, and a coach would be there and have like a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. Yeah. And they're already practicing in the room, like they're rolling around on the mats and stuff, like I'm sure William was, but I asked them if they're competing yet, and they said, no, they're not disciplined enough to compete. I won't let them compete.
No,
so I've heard that before.
Go out there and hurt some kid. I am in awe of some of the guys. The more recent guys would be the South Dade kids who, Coach Vic's son, 4-time state champ, who wrestled when he was little. And I watched him when he was a little kid. Duck's son, Raina's son, who just finished this year, 4-time state champ, who I watched wrestle since he was a little kid. I mean,
Duck and Pat. So I was going to have baby Duck and baby Pat on, one at 1 o'clock, one at 2 o'clock. But they called me, they texted me last night and said, can we come on together? So for you to know, I've got them both coming on together at 2. Perfect.
Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome. But those guys too, Raina, Balmaceda, and Lugo, those guys, I'm in awe of guys like that. And all the guys, Coach Cozart's sons, the guys who can wrestle when they're little and maintain it and hit moves, I give him credit, because my son would have gotten out there at 7 or 8. He damn sure was eager. He'd run around in his jeans and have no shoes on it. ready to wrestle. And then he come over to me, Dad, I just wrestled that kid and I pinned him and he's getting ready to wrestle today. Can I wrestle? I'm like, no, you got on freaking jeans and a t-shirt. So, but I told, he kept asking me, when am I going to wrestle? When you're probably like 12. I said, give it about 3 more years. And you're like 12. And sure enough, when he turned 12, so 7th grade going into 8th, he actually started his first matches. And his first match was against a kid he loses to all the time. And he still lost to him this year. His first match ever was against a kid that moved in from Jersey that went to Wellington, just graduated this year. And the kid was a very advanced kid for 7th grade, 8th grade. The kid was going to 8th, Will was going to 7th. Or the kid was going to 9th, Will was going into 8th. And the kid pummeled him. And after that, he started winning some matches. He's always won way more than he lost, but it's only because we waited till he could actually listen out there. And that, I feel like it was good. Didn't burn him out. He didn't get injured. And, you know, though he definitely has taken some lumps, he always wins way more than he loses. I think it's just been healthy.
Wellington, is that the blonde-haired kid that's won like 4 straight or something?
No, Wellington is in our area. This kid took 4th this year also. Justin Henry.
There's a kid that I think it was, well, South Dade is 3A, right?
Yes, sir.
So maybe it was 2A or 3A?
Maybe.
I don't know. This kid's won like 4 straight. He looks like a surfer kid. He's got the big blonde hair. I've seen him win the last 3 years that I've been out there.
Yeah, I'd have to know what weight class it is, because I got to be honest, I get so laser focused on 3A and specifically the weight class I have a kid. I generally.
Are you there? Coach George? Are you there? Coach? So looks, Coach is talking to us from his truck there because he's at home educating. So it looks like
what my expectations are for him as a person. And I keep telling him a whole lot now, because this crisis has put a lot of things in perspective. And I tell him it's not always about wrestling, man. You're a great guy. You're going to go to college. I love you no matter what. And so now I think I'm finally getting it. It took me all that time. Like I said, when I said he wasn't ready in the beginning, I don't think I was ready either.
So when does that start to happen, Coach? Because I've got a 14-year-old, like the beginning of teenage years, and if I bring up wrestling to him, he tells me to shut up and rolls his eyes. Or if I want to talk to him about something, he tells me I'm not cool enough. Is there an age where maybe he gets to where he might like me again?
Oh man, it's tough. Man. Only thing that helps me in wrestling, and it's kind of one of those things that you don't even know till he tells you one day, that I think what helps is the respect other kids give you as a coach. I don't know if I can help as a dad. As a coach, he looks at the way other kids look at me and the way other kids respect me at Gardens High School overall, in my weightlifting classes and on the wrestling team, and other kids from other schools say things to him about me. And then he'll come and tell me later on, like in private, at home somewhere, you don't seem like you're cool enough at a tournament or in public. But at home, he'll come back and tell you. He'll say, "Man, those guys are all scared of you over there." Everybody.
Well, he was definitely my friend when I had Yanni on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to come sit with me and be my buddy. And
you're cool. But
yeah.
Listen, you're doing a great job, and you'll never know until you're not looking for the reassurance, the affirmation. When you're looking for it, it's always like anything else, man. When you're looking too hard for it, it's not going to show. It's when you're not looking for it. They pop up and they surprise you with it. And they'll say, "Dad, you're awesome. You know, you're good." Look at all these people that tune into your show. Your kid's proud of you. They just aren't going to flat out tell you that.
Yeah, man, I got to tell you, I'm super blessed. And I feel like I had something come over me during the season this year where I felt like I needed to be a voice at his school. And then with wrestling, and then I just feel like God put me in a position of quarantine to start this platform. And as soon as I started it, I realized that I made the right choice because this community has just backed me and send me stuff. And I mean, Omi sent me this hat and a card. You know, it's good job. And
such a small world, man. One of my assistant coach right now, who's awesome, and I would definitely like to mention his name, Lerone Madison. Everybody's been calling him my mini-me for years. Not only because he's kind of short, but he wrestled Omi. I coached him against Omi at South Dade way back in probably the 2007 to 9 era. He and Omi used to go back and forth at it, and Omi beat him at States his senior year, and now they're good friends. And I'm sending one of my kids, my state champ this year, to Life University to be with Omi. So, small world.
That's awesome. So now let's transition a little bit about you, sir. Now you were a wrestler out of South Florida?
Yeah, Palm Beach Gardens High School.
Nice. So you stayed there the whole time, and then you ended up going up to a school in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, Bloomsburg University.
Nice. Like, and how'd that go?
Like the financial company with an S in the middle.
And I think I saw where you made the NCAA.
Yeah. So I went to school in '89 originally, like a typical kid out of high school. Had a lot of financial troubles. Didn't go back for the second semester of '89-90. So I left school after one semester, came back for the second semester that year, and then the next 2 years in a row. So because of the NCAA 5 consecutive year rule, I lost that year. That year they called my redshirt year. The first year I was out, I didn't go back to school. They counted as my freshman year. The second year I didn't go back to school was my sophomore year, eligibility-wise. So when I finally decided to return to school after just working at home, I went back as a freshman still academically, but a junior eligibility-wise. So I competed. I was just glad to be back in school, man. I was like a man that got released from prison, or a guy that was free of cancer. I hate to use that reference, but I had a new lease on life. And I went back. I was so happy to be back in college. I was like, I'll do anything they want me to do. I mean, all these other kids are walking around. I truly stopped taking it for granted. All these kids are walking around, taking college for granted, going to wrestling practice, complaining, you know, state runners up, state champs from PA and New York and Jersey. And I'm just glad to be there. And I'm ready to outwork all of them. I'm like, you know what? I'm glad to be back at this dirty school and run these hills. And I had that attitude when I went back. I was in the room as soon as I went back in September or whenever you go back. I was already training, and there was kids still drinking. You know, that's their drinking period. Wrestling don't start. Oh, we're going to get started late October. I was going nuts already, and I was grabbing anybody who wanted to go to the room and work out, and I worked out with them. And then they actually had a depth chart at Bloomsburg back then, a physical one in the room they had those name tags in a row under your weight class. So I was like 177. I was probably 6th or 7th down in that thing. You know, my attitude, at least my name's on the board. I am a college wrestler. When they handed me that dirty little duffel bag, that little laundry bag with my uniform in it and some socks and a pair of shoes, I was like, I'm on the wrestling team out of college, you know? So
that's awesome.
I ended up climbing that depth chart, man. And I put so many state champs and top recruits they were giving money to. I put so many of those guys behind me and became #1 guy that year. I was like, you know what it was? It was that maturity. I went back. I was ready to do it. The first time around I wasn't ready to do anything but have fun and party. The second time, I was a man. And
wow.
So I went to qualify for NCAAs, and it was a race with history.
Bam. And then I read, and I'll let you tell the story, but I read where they put together like an all Florida team. Mm-hmm. And the Russians came to town, and they did like a big exhibition back in, I think it was '95. And so they took a few of the top Florida wrestlers and matched up against these Russians. And what happened?
It was a lead up to an Olympic year. Obviously, the Olympics I think they were in Atlanta in '96, maybe. I think. So the Russians were touring America. This wasn't their Olympic team, obviously. It was like a junior, like a developmental team. The guys ranged anywhere from little kids, like little hammers, all the way up to like 28-year-old Pan Am Games got champs. So it was different age and experience levels. So since they were touring and they were in South Florida, someone asked someone. All I know is that somebody came and asked me if I wanted to wrestle. But somebody set it up, and I forget who did. It was held at Lake Worth High School over here on the East Coast. I don't know who organized it, but someone said, "Hey, do you have a bunch of guys hanging around that want to wrestle?" It was all freestyle, obviously, because Russians don't know how to wrestle folk style. And I'm gonna be honest, I've wrestled probably 9 freestyle matches in my entire life up to that point. So somebody came, my old head coach from high school, and the guy who I was assisting, Mike Chesnes, came in the weight room one day and asked me if I wanted to. He said, "Somebody so and so asked me down at Lake Worth if you wanted to wrestle on his team," and I was about 25 years old, and I'm still wrestling a lot with the kids on the mat, but I had stopped at Bloomsburg at 94. My eligibility was done, so my competitive wrestling was over for over a year, but I was still too dumb and cocky to say no to something like that. He said, "I don't know how." I said, "How good are they?" He said, "Oh, yeah, they're not their Olympic guys." He said, "They're a little younger guys." And I'm like, "Okay, sure, tell him I'll do it." So he goes down to the guy, "I'll do it." So he comes back the next day in the weight room. Now I got about a week before this match. He says, you might want to start training. This guy, the guy you got's a 2-time Siberian national champ. What the heck? Like, why didn't you tell me any of this in the beginning? So now I can't pull
Yeah,
out.
you told me they weren't that good.
Yeah, 2-time Siberian national champ. He's not a junior champion, though. I'm like, I have never wrestled freestyle, really. These guys, okay. So anyway, I'm thinking, okay, there's not that many people in Siberia. Maybe it's not that big of a title. So anyway, we go out and we start wrestling these guys. There's probably about 16 or 17 of them, ranging from, like I said, little kids, maybe 10 years old, all the way up to like 27, 28-year-old guys with muscles popping out of behind their ears. These guys were, Russian.
Even the 9-year-olds, right?
Yeah,
They were like
muscly, but hairy on top of that too. So, but I'm noticing in the locker room, the guys when I'm changing, the guys are looking at me too. I mean, they don't speak a lick of English. They're looking at me too because I spent a lot of time in the weight room, so I was able to fool them a little bit. The guys looking at me like this. Whoa, they're pointing at me, going, "Whoa, whoa," like showing, "Hey, this guy's got big arms." So the guy had, I don't know. Yeah, all I know is he was stronger than hell. He looked like he was probably about 10 pounds lighter than me, but he was stronger than hell. His grip was like iron. But I said, you know what? I watched all our guys wrestle in a row. Luckily, I'd watched about 10 or 11 matches in a row where all our guys made the mistake at some point of going upper body with these guys, locking up upper body with them, and they got thrown all over the place. My good buddy, Steve Williams, I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning this. Steve Williams got like a Pan Am Games champ, though. He got like their stud. And this guy threw Steve all over the place. And Steve was a good freestyle wrestler, was a state finalist in Florida, was an All-American. I think he took 5th at NC State. So Steve, I thought, was our team stud. When Steve got thrown all over the place, I'm thinking, I don't have any shot. There's no way I could wrestle this guy. So I walked out there, and my plan was at least, you know what, stay away from upper body. That's your only hope for survival. So I went out there and I shot on the guy. So the first shot on him, take him down. I'm like, holy crap, this guy can't stop my shot. So I take another shot, take him down. Okay, now I'm winning probably about 4-0. And so the second one, I take him straight to back. The third one, I take him straight to his back. So I'm getting back exposure and everything. And I got this guy on his back. And at this point, I'm still not believing I'm beating this guy. I'm thinking, okay, I've scored a lot of points now. If he came back, if he rolled me, now if he pins me, at least the crowd thinks this guy gave him a good match. And I'm thinking, and the guy couldn't get off his back. Next thing you know, they slammed their head, they hit the mat. I was like, oh, what happened? And I pinned the guy. I was like, holy crap.
But so how important is it for these kids to be sitting there watching matches prior to theirs? Because if you didn't sit there and watch those matches prior, you would have had no idea how to wrestle those guys. You would have went and got thrown as well, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's very important to learn from what you want, not just be scared of it. I mean, it was definitely humbling. It was definitely intimidating because we were getting our butts kicked. But I was also learning from it. I was like, okay, don't go upper body with it. And that was not a problem for me because I wasn't an upper body wrestler anyway. All our coach had us doing was shooting in high school. So all we did was attack legs, and I was pretty good at it. And every time I shot him, the guy said, you know what, either I'm going to take him down or I'm going to drive him out of bounds. There will be no flipping. He's not going to throw me all over the place. And luckily, all that weight room did pay off because I was a little bit stronger than he was. but it was a fun match.
The place go nuts when you hit that pin.
Yeah, because up to that point, it was the first win out of probably about 11 or 12 matches. And you know what? I've been beat by plenty of guys in the NCAAs. I've been beat by people in freestyle tournaments after that in the United States. So I don't know I don't know how tough Siberia was, but it looked better in the newspaper than it actually was. And it was a good story to talk about. And it was recorded. It is on YouTube somewhere with no sound.
And it's on Google because I found it. I didn't find the match, but I found the article.
Oh yeah, it's a very grainy, weird-looking match, and my kids love to watch. My kids love to watch it. That's the most beautiful thing about any of my old tapes, Bloomsburg University or that Russian match. My son will pull it up, and every now and then, about once or twice a year, Dad, pull up the Russian match, and then these kids will go, "Dang, coach, you can shoot like that." I said, yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. So before we get to my 10 questions. You were a high school wrestler in Florida and you've been a coach in Florida. How far has Florida wrestling come and where do you think it can go as far as competing with the big states?
Well, I think if you look at the evolution, some of these guys that are watching will tell you, the older guys for me, a little bit older like Goog, those guys will tell you, man, Florida wrestling was kind of a pushover back in the 80s, when I was in high school. The mere thought of a kid being from out of state or you wrestling kid from out of state shook you to your core. We were like, oh, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. It's the truth. I mean, maybe a kid here or there could compete with out of state kids in Florida, but overall we were a pushover. I went to Pennsylvania in a room, it was a D1 room and it was top 15. Bloomsburg was really tough back then, really tough. Top 15 in the country. I walked in as a 3-time state qualifier and a 2-time place winner, and I couldn't beat anybody. I couldn't beat guys that just went to regionals up there. I mean, I couldn't beat anybody, literally. So there was a huge difference. But now wrestling has evolved so much now in the last 20 years. All it was, and this is what I talk to lots of coaches about, it's the quality of coaching that has worked its way back down in Florida. Before, you had a handful of really good coaches or dedicated coaches who would actually spend that time with kids, and they were winning in their little pocket of Florida. Jim Huss down in Miami, Brandon Cozart. You had these coaches in these little pockets of Florida that were just outdoing everybody else. So they were winning.
I remember, and you might have to, I don't know, I forget the kid's name, but I graduated high school in, well, I think it was supposed to be 94, but I liked it so much I stayed an extra year, so it was 95.
Same here.
But there was a Haitian kid down there, real nice kid. He was awesome, and he won the state tournament. But I can't remember if for Camerati. I can't remember if it was 93, 94, 95.
I would have been at Bloomsburg University, so I would know.
At the time, yeah, I wish I could remember his name. He was such a good kid. We stayed in touch after high school a little bit, and then, life happens.
So what do I think the difference is? I think Florida's evolved tremendously due to the fact we got tremendous athletes down here. Always have. Football kind of tells you that. There's some great athletes everywhere. In fact, Florida may have a little bit of an advantage on the athlete side due to the experience, due to the cultural integration down here. I will say, when you hit Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, New York, it's not as culturally diverse. I've been there. I took my team up to Pennsylvania last summer for a camp, which started out with a dual meet tournament, and we walked in kind of late. We drove up there and then so we walked in a little bit late we made a fashionable late entrance into the dual meet tournament. Everybody was warming up already and we came in still dressed, and you should have seen everybody's heads rotating like this. As parents, everybody, because our team was just diverse. It just looked different. So we got great athletes down here. And what's happened is back in the day, all we had was great athletes and a few good coaches. Now you got all these guys that have gone off to Division I schools and NAIA schools and great JCs. They've gotten all this college level experience and they brought it back down to Florida now. So now you're giving the great athletes that advantage that those upper level kids in Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey, and Iowa had. And now that advantage is shrinking. Now the only thing is the depth of coaching at the little league level now still. Pennsylvania, and everybody will tell you this, PA has coaches and Jersey has coaches coaching little kids who should be state championship high school coaches down here. So the little kids sometimes down in Florida will get the dad coaching the club, no offense to the dad, or we'll just get whoever wants to volunteer time with them sometimes. So they're not getting a super high quality. But up in PA, there's so many great coaches that you don't get a high school just because you were a great wrestler. There's already a great wrestler. So
and you're not kidding about the diversity. I grew up in South Florida, and then I moved up to Orlando in the late 90s where I met my now wife. And she got done with UCF, and then she got accepted to optometry school up in Philadelphia. So I'm white, she's Puerto Rican. When we started walking the streets in Philadelphia and outside of Philadelphia, it was tough. We had never, growing up in a multicultural area like South Florida, we had never been in an area in our lives where people frowned upon diverse relationships, and it was at first it was tough.
And Philly's even mixed for Pennsylvania. You step out of Philly and you start getting up in the Poconos and you get in the areas I went to school. It's not Philly's integrated compared to those areas.
Yeah, and this was 2000, so it was obviously, I'm sure the world has changed up there. And one thing is, I love Philadelphia. My grandma was born and raised in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a special place in my heart. So I'm not saying it in a bad way. I love you, Philly, but we would walk into a Best Buy and people would look at us like, "What the hell is that?" And
I understand.
It was very weird to experience that coming from Miami, where all my friends were whatever they were,
When you're not experiencing, when you're not dipping into, I mean, it's like going to a restaurant that only serves baked chicken every day. Baked chicken, and then you go to a restaurant, a Cuban restaurant, or you go to a Haitian restaurant, or you go to a restaurant Mediterranean, you're like, oh my God. Everything, you mix it in together. People are great people, Mexican, Haitian, Spanish, doesn't matter what they are, they're great.
You're like, wow, this food actually tastes like something.
You got to tap into the potential. Florida's got so much potential. And to finish up what you were asking me, where do I see Florida wrestling now in the future? God, 20 years from now, just think where we've come in 20 years. We've caught up pretty much. And, other than the top states like PA is still the mecca of high school wrestling, but not for long, I'm telling you. I mean, they're always going to be great, but they won't always be head and shoulders above Florida.
Well, also, we're seeing these coaches come down. Like I was talking to Coach Olson, and I was talking to Coach Beebe. I was talking to Coach Donnie over at CFWA. So one is Beebe trained, Strawberry Crest, CFWA. They all came from Illinois, and I asked them, good Lord, Illinois is like one of the meccas of wrestling. And they said, are you kidding me? I realized I can go to Florida now, be 20 miles from the beach, and wrestle and teach the sport. So I think our state is starting to attract some of that cold weather coaching and be like, man, I can coach in 80-degree weather. I can go to the beach in sandals all year round.
You know what's beautiful? Our guys like Omi Acosta, like Lugo, like the kids from Brandon from the past, and just you name it. There's kids all over the place from different schools that have gone on to the D1 level and been All-Americans, and they're now working their way back into Florida. And they're jumping in these rooms, becoming assistants and rolling around with kids, and these kids' levels shooting right up because they're practicing with a freaking All-American. That's kind of exactly what happened when I first came back from Bloomsburg. I wasn't an All-American, but a Division I national qualifier wrestling with high school kids every day instead of that kid wrestling with another kind of, a slightly chubby new kid. I jumped in the ring when I first came back. I jumped right in there with a 220-pound, 230-pound kid that was coming from football. He had never wrestled before, 10th grader.
Yeah. Well, my uncle was 14 years old or 15 years old, and he wrestled for a guy named Jim Husk at Curly High. And he told me that after that, he ended up going over to Miami-Dade when it was a community college. And he said that back then there was no weight limit to heavyweight. So he would be
unlimited.
He'd be 225 or 235 or whatever, and he'd be having to wrestle 285, 325, these big football guys coming in there. And he said it wasn't as easy as it looks with these guys all that weight, and now obviously they put limitations on it. You don't want guys getting hurt, but well, man, this has been great, Coach George. I'm glad that we got together here, and you know, the way I've been doing it, the wrestling world, and to you is, I'm sitting here and guys are just sending me names. I had this guy, I'll tell you his name right now. I should know it better by now, but I'm over 40 and I'm losing my mind.
I'm a little heavy. I can vouch.
Yeah, and he's Marlon Tellez, man. If I could say enough about Marlon Tellez, this guy has been so helpful to me. I've never met him before in my life. He messages me daily, and he sends me numbers all the time of folks that that I should reach out to, and that's how I'm getting all these names and numbers and people to reach out to.
Awesome.
All the time, they come to me all the time. Ricky has been sending me stuff. These different college coaches have been sending me stuff. I just spoke to Butch Hildebrand out on the West Coast. Next thing I knew, I had Nick Simmons on, who's you know, I was looking at the high school rankings nationwide, and he's still top 5 in most of them. You know, it's been unbelievable. So I can't say enough to this wrestling community who's come together and kind of had my back here. So thank you to all of you.
Let me throw one quick thing, and I'll make it as quick as possible.
Take your time.
Just a thank you to everyone. If there's, and I've always wanted to have a format to say this, so I really thank you for this. Any coaches that may be listening, you know, I only mean well for my kids. If I'm out there and I'm yelling and screaming or whatever you see, it is all just me trying to push these kids to be their best. It's not in any slight toward your kid, not a slight toward you as a coach. I have major respect for these coaches, especially the ones that beat me, because they're the motivation for me to keep going back to my practice room and getting better. So I love the competition. The guys who are better than me, they make me raise my bar. They keep me from being lazy. And I have mad respect for every coach, man. Anybody who can put this kind of time in with kids that aren't their kids every day, you deserve a medal, man, because there's nothing financially coming back to you really after all this. And all these wrestling coaches need a pat on the back, man. And the parents are awesome that get involved. I mean, nobody does it alone. Your assistant coaches are great. Your faculty, your administration has to be involved. Your parents have to be great. And the kids, ultimately, it's really just the kids. I told my son the other day, no matter how much people give me credit for being this or that, I haven't done a thing. I've just simply told you guys to do things and you've gone out and done them, but ultimately you did them. So the kids are great, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's been incredible. And these coaches, I know Daniel's coaches at the First Academy, Coach Rose and Coach Wheeldryer, have just been incredible with his growth. And then joining the club over at Central Florida Wrestling Academy with all the coaches there and all the Lake Highland Prep guys, they just have just been mentors to him and been amazing, just parent figures to them. I offer my son to them, you know, here you go. and they take it from there. Shane McCall, I can't say enough about all these people. Shane McCall. I mean, I just get stuff every day. Jake Campbell, Connor Beebe, Scotty Sentis.
Hey, listen, man, they're raising a lot of people's kids. That's the truth. And it shouldn't have to be that way. But the truth is, in a lot of cases, these guys are raising people's kids. And thank God they're good men, because they could be negatively influencing them, but they're not. They're raising these people's kids and they're getting them ready for college. You know, they're setting the bar high. So these kids walk out of their room in 4 years thinking, like robots, I must go to college. You know, or if I go to military, I'm going to military and I'm going to wrestle, I'm going to compete in the military. But they walk out of there different than what they walked in.
Amazing. Hey, do they still have, so when I was younger, every once in a while, my mom for vacation, like on a weekend or something, we would drive up to, there used to be like a Sheridan off the highway in Palm Beach, and they had a Bobby Rubino's in it. And I just remember as a kid, it was like my favorite place to eat. I couldn't wait to go up there. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it was a great barbecue joint.
I don't know of it anymore. I don't know of it. Things change so much around here, man. It's one of those places where every 15 minutes, a restaurant's gone and replaced by another one.
All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it. You're down by 3 going into the third period. You have choice. Are you going top, bottom, or neutral?
Bottom, definitely. Been there many times. Get that escape and get that takedown.
Well, and after hearing your Russian story, I have a feeling I think I know the next answer here. Folk style or freestyle?
Oh, man, folk style, definitely, all day long.
Headgear or no headgear?
Headgear, I got used to it. I love my ears.
So you've got one day for either take the question how you want. You have one day for you to train, or you have one day for your kids to train. Do you take them to a rumble or do you take them to a clinic?
I take them to a clinic. I always think you can definitely learn more from guided training.
Okay, so I've been asking this next question for a couple weeks now, and I never even knew why I was asking it. But I finally went this weekend and I watched the movie Vision Quest. So I did my due diligence. But it's a question that came from the community. So who wins the rematch, Loudon Swain or Brian Shute?
I think Brian Shute wins. To me, Loudon Swain was way too distracted in that movie. And I had a major problem with the fact that this guy, I'm not just saying this because I like Mr. Jasper, he's my buddy now. I think Shute was too focused. Shute was a defending champ. The dude was a monster. He's walking up bleachers with logs. And this guy, Loudon, was a tough guy in the beginning. But if you remember, he stopped running home all the time. He started taking rides home on the back of the little motorcycle with the kid. So to me, he lost his edge right there. When he stopped running home, he was done.
Which title holds more prestige, the 32 or the Fargo?
Oh, man, right. Just prestige, Fargo. Everybody knows about it. You know, I feel like more big name guys go to it, but I was there. I was at Super 32 last September, and just about, at least I watched the heavyweight weight class. I'm not even talking about my son's weight class. The heavyweight weight class had probably about 7 of the top 10 ranked guys in the nation competing. The top 2 guys in the nation were there. So I'm like, what's the difference?
Yeah, so how close do you, and this isn't a question on here, but I just came into my mind while we were talking about it. How close do you think the knockout is becoming to be in the conversation?
Knockout would have to have more schools from the North and the Midwest before it could even get in that conversation. It is by far the toughest thing in the Southeast though already.
Nice. What's more dominant, a pin or a tech?
A tech. Anybody can get caught in a pin. A tech is clearly, there's no way in hell you could have beat that guy.
So you're at a bar or a restaurant. Do you go wings or burger?
Wings.
Do you go nuggets or tenders?
Tenders. Nuggets are for baby.
You go Popeyes or Chick-fil-A?
Oh, Popeyes. Popeyes got a little bit more street to it.
I like it too.
I feel my roots when I eat at Popeyes.
Did you hear what Coach Wilkes said the other day? He said Popeyes because them Chick-fil-A people, they eating it with their pinky out. That's what
they're too nice. They make me nervous. When I go to Popeyes, I was born and raised in Riviera Beach in West Palm Beach, the grittier parts. So when I go to Popeyes, the way people talk to me and handle me there, I'm like, I'm right at home. I'm used to this.
I prefer Popeyes too, my man. Hey, thank you so much. I hope to one day get to meet you. I think, God willing, next year, wrestling is back up and running. And everybody that has helped me create this platform, I hope to get to meet at States next year and at tournaments along the way. And thank you. I wish your son the best. I hope to see him on a college mat too one day.
Hey, and, Dan, thank you though, Dan. Before you go, I want to thank you, man, for being awesome. You and guys like Ricky and just anybody who's doing thankless jobs that you don't have to do. We thank you, man. And I want to say I thank officials too. I left them out before, but I've been kind of abusive or accused of being a little abusive to a few officials in my past. And I'd like to apologize openly to them now and let them know we do appreciate them.
Well, you can keep doing it because we'll have Cipriano on Fridays. You could bust his chops if you want.
No, he's great, man. I've never had any problem with him. He makes me nervous.
You know, I told him something when I first reached out to him. I had never met him before. I see him in tournaments that my kid is in. And the reason I recognized him on social media was because every time we walk into a wrestling tournament, my son would always look for the mat. And if he saw him on there, he would tell me, Dad, when he's reffing, he refs fair. He goes, I don't care if I get the call or they get the call, as long as we're refed fair. And that guy always makes the right calls and refs us fair. And I feel more comfortable when he's on the mat. And obviously there's other refs that he doesn't say that about.
Yeah, I just think they're all mean well. I think very, very rarely, like at a big tournament where they're human. If they do know a kid's coach for 25 years, they're like me. I'm putting myself in those shoes. It'd be very hard to make a super close call against the kid of a coach who's a buddy of yours, who've known for 25 years. Because I've seen it happen for us in the past 25 years. I've seen it happen lean our way, and I've seen it go against us. I can't hang on it too much when a call goes, when I'm looking at what I think is a takedown, and the ref says, nah, they were out of bounds, or it wasn't a takedown, you didn't have enough control. But I do know, we're not dumb. We know that ref is good friends with that coach. It's part of the game.
Well, these are good conversations to have. And this is why when I reached out to Cipriano, I asked if he would do a weekly show called Ask the Ref, because I think right now you have good points and you can ask him. And he's, what I like about him is he's not afraid to speak up. Well, and another good thing is I think it'll be better once wrestling starts, because then we'll have the, hey, watch this match. Hey, tell me what this happened here. As long as people do it in a professional manner, I'll continue to do it. But when they start getting a little nasty, then I'll have to, say, okay, send your questions in. But as far as that, I don't mind a little friction. People are going to get a little angry. People are going to have some emotional opinions on matches. And I want that to happen, because I feel like if we get a ref on like Sip and he is able to say, look, sometimes he's going to make a parent or a coach not happy with what he says on the show, but sometimes he's not going to make the ref that made the call happy on his show. And what I like about him is he'll tell you how it is. He'll say whether the ref made a bad call, or he'll say whether the parent or coach should just shut up.
Yep, because you know what, even as coaches, we swear to God we're right about something. We run up to the table and we think we know the rule, and the ref will calmly say, "Sir, that's been changed. Have you looked at the rule book this year?" "No, I thought that always." But don't you spell? "No, sir, it's in the rules." They'll pull out. "Oh, okay, my bad." So just like we make mistakes, they make mistakes sometimes. And at the end of the day, I don't think they're malicious. I do not. I don't think that many men, it's like a cop. I don't think anybody puts on a uniform to go out and do bad to people. So
I agree. They're not getting paid enough they might as well be volunteers. They're doing it because they love the sport and the kids.
Yeah. And we need them. We do need them. All these big tournaments we go, we get all worked up. We get our goosebumps up for, like the state tournament, like Knockout. Man, where would you be if you didn't have the referees lined up to do it?
I can tell you just from my experience as a parent, I've been to some AAU tournaments with my kid last year, and I've been to some different call outs, and it's not the same when you got a high school kid calling the match.
Not at all. Not at all. I've been there too. And then I get on their case too. I'm standing there, in some tournament, some school on a Saturday when I would rather be fishing. And I'm standing there kind of getting on some kid's case, getting a little tough on. And I'm like, you know what? Back off, dummy. This is a high school kid. He's doing his best. Yeah.
But it's like the kid's talking to his buddy on the other mat and the match is going on.
He's a kid. And they always tell you, coach, we're doing the head coach of the school will tell you, or whoever's directing the tournament will say, hey, coach, we're doing it. Do you want to hold the tournament or not? And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And you know what you have to do? That's why, even with my son, he loses a lot of these off-season tournaments, these close matches, these high-level kids by a point, 2 points. And he'll say, Dad, but that was a takedown. I had a reversal. And I'll say, yeah, you did. But we're here to get practice anyway. So even if you had beat him, it was just practice.
I wish I could get that through. I don't know. Again, I have a 14-year-old. He hasn't, he's starting to mature a little bit, but he's still 14. So I try to tell him that he's just learning right now. But I know that you have to have the mentality that you can win every time you get on the mat. And I want him to have that mentality, but I also, when we're on the off seasons and I hear the kids that have been doing it a while and are a little further along than him, and they'll say, "Hey man, this is just practice." And we were at Super 32 qualifying, and it was the first time he had ever been to anything like that, and he got beat twice. I think his weight class was the one with one of the Ortiz boys, Hines boys. So it wasn't very good if you have to wrestle a Hines kid. That doesn't work out very well for you. So
yeah, not Malik, but it's Malik's brother.
Yeah, what's Malik's brother's name?
You know what? It doesn't matter what weight class. When you go to something like that, you can't even say he was in the weight class as him. He was in the weight. Every weight class is stacked. So
I just tell him, and even the kids that he was wrestling with in the room were telling him, "Hey, man," even the parents, and it was good for me because I'm learning. Like, I'm thinking these tournaments matter, and the parents are even telling me, "Hey, this doesn't matter. This is practice."
It doesn't. Even if you win it, it means nothing. It means nothing. So this is what I got through my kids. When I got most of my kids got a couple, I think it crushed them. That's the risk you run. I made a very tough schedule going all the way to Pennsylvania. From the summer all the way through the season. We went to Pennsylvania twice. We went to Osceola. Anytime you go to Osceola, you're going for a hard tournament. It could be the knockout. It could be the Danny Byron. No matter what it is, we were in there with the best. Every time I looked around somewhere, Tampa Jesuit was right next to me, or Lake Gibson was somewhere, or Haggerty, or Fleming Island, or South Day. I said, look around this gym, man. You're only wrestling with the best guys. You're going to get nicked up. And I said, it doesn't matter what your season is. It doesn't matter what your record is. It's who did you wrestle in all those matches. Like my son had like over 10 losses again. Every year he loses over 10 matches, but he gets the States and he finishes in the top 4, and he had him ranked like 8th going in. So
yeah, we went and watched the knockout the final day. I brought Daniel because I had never been either. So I was like, hey, let's go. So he was cool with it. So we went and watched. I mean, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember watching Reyna losing the final. I remember watching Hines losing the final. And I'm thinking, how good is this tournament if those two kids are getting beat in the finals?
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. And but you want to go there just so, all it's doing for me, all it was doing for my kids, and I keep preaching this. I hope nobody takes my secrets, but I'm sure the great guys know.
Nobody's listening, by the way.
I was preaching to my kids the whole season. We went to Pennsylvania, wrestled Lake. I'm like, how the hell unlucky did we get? We went all the way to Pennsylvania, went into the mountains of some remote place, and the school we were wrestling, I knew was state champs. They were 2-time defending state champs, and I knew about them. But freaking Wyoming Seminary popped up in there. They're number 1 in the nation at the time. I was like, wait. How the hell did we end up in a gym with Wyoming Seminary? And we dueled them, and we got our butts kicked. We took a couple matches off them where they must have had backups. But you know what? These are great matches to be getting. I said, man, forget your record. You just rolled around with guys that are way, way, way up here. I said, now when you get to States, what can scare you? What worse can they throw at you? And they finally started getting it. So when they got to States used to be a big thing. And now I see how the Brandon kids back in the day can be so businesslike when they get there and just do their business and walk through it. And some of the South Day kids.
Well, I talked to Tobias, who won. He was 170 wrestling the 195s. Okay, hey world, we all know about the call and whatever. I don't need to be messaged about that, but this is not what the conversation is about. Okay, he ended up winning that match in overtime, and I had him on the show. And I said to him, what made you have the confidence to go out there and do what you did? And he said, Palazzo takes us all around the country, and we are wrestling kids that I knew weren't going to be in this room. So the confidence it gave me to come in here and go, okay, well, I've been on the mat with the best in the country. I can deal with the best in the state.
Yeah, I don't mean to diminish the state tournament, but I'm just putting it like it is factually. If you run with the big dogs all the time, even if you get your butt kicked by the big dogs, when you get put in with some more big dogs, but a smaller yard, still some mean dogs in that yard, but you've been in a big yard with a bunch of big dogs for a long time, you're just not scared. Doesn't mean you're going to go in and wipe everybody out. Doesn't mean you're going in and win, but you're cool as a cucumber. And I think that's one thing everybody kind of noticed about my son. win or lose, you look at my son's face, you can see a calmness I didn't have when I was in high school. That kid always can handle every situation. If he can physically pull off a move and win a situation, he does. Sometimes he can't. Sometimes the kid is just better than him, like the semis this year. But if you leave him in a match, you leave him hanging around, and you're only up by one or whatever the case is, it goes overtime. He's going to pull something out on you because he believes he can do it, and he's done it to big name kids. So that's why I take these kids to these hard tournaments, because though nobody's going to finish undefeated, including my 2-time state champ this year, nobody's going to finish undefeated. But when we get to the state tournament, nobody's going to be scared either.
Yeah, and I never understood. So my first day ever, I think I went to before I signed Daniel up for club wrestling, I went there for a rumble because I heard about, hey, there's this rumble thing that goes on. So I took him there, and there was a bunch of kids, and I got to meet a father. His name is Dakota, and he's got several kids in the club. Yeah. And I introduced myself, and he said, has your son lost 100 matches yet? And I said, I don't know, probably. Well, until he loses 100 matches, he's not a wrestler. And I never understood until I started to be around everybody. And I'm like, man, he's not kidding.
Well, that's for the guys that's because almost everybody he knows probably starts wrestling when they're 5 years old. It's easy to lose 100 matches when you start at 5. When you start at 14, 13, you don't really have 100 matches to give.
Well, he was damn near close.
I started wrestling in 10th grade, so I didn't have 100 matches to blow.
No, but it's crazy. And maybe he exaggerated the number, but I think his point was, hey, there's going to be a lot of losing before there's winning in this sport. And I've seen it being a parent in the room. I've seen these amazing athletes try wrestling, and they're getting whooped, and their dad's like, I don't know how that's happening. The kid is frustrated. I'm like,
hey, it's just like the line in Aerosmith's song, man. I every time I hear it, it gives me a chill. And Dream On, you got to lose to know how to win. And yep. That means multiple things. That means you learn from your losses, but you also learn how to win like a man, respectfully. Getting beat enough times, after a while, you remember that feeling of getting beat. You remember that feeling of getting pinned, being the kid on the ground embarrassed. So you start to learn how to win like a man. You don't jump up and do backflips on top of the kid or show him up. Because you were that kid down there many times, and you still will be some other day. So losing shows you how to win.
It's awesome. Hey, man, thanks for being on, Coach.
Okay, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, man. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, man. You take care.
Yes, sir. Take it easy. Be safe. I'll see you next season.